Hi, this is Andy of Andy's Personal Development, and we are currently live in the breakout room. So, welcome, and we love being here for you with quality and value to inspire and to transform. Remember, we are on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, and iTunes. Today, as usual, we have a special guest to share with you for your development and growth and to live your better informed life. So, grab a cup, pull up a seat, and stay tuned for the introduction right here, now, live in the breakout room. Hi, people. This is Andy of Andy's Personal Development, and our next guest live in the breakout room is Dr. Ron Stotts. He is a transformational guide. He has a Ph.D. in psychology and also is a doctor of chiropractic. This is the man of the moment. He's also a 3-time best-selling author with publications such as Ins and Outs of Mindfulness, Overscheduled by Success, and Leadership on the Leading Edge. Dr. Ron is supported by his beautiful wife, Carol, and it shows he's a happy man indeed. So, let's welcome in the breakout room on Andy's Personal Development, our special guest, Dr. Ron Stotts. There you go. So, good afternoon and welcome, Dr. Ron. How are you this afternoon, sir?
Very good, very good. I'm glad to be here with you and everyone.
Yeah. Nice, wonderful. Good to have you. Glad that you could take the time out just to be with us on Andy's Personal Development, and we are live in the breakout room. Yeah, so, let's begin our conversation.
All right.
Looking through your information, I realized that you would have spent time in the military. And during that period of time, you would have went to war and so on. And I would say you had your epiphany moment, if I can call it that. And there was a transactional change that took place in your life.
Yes.
But before all of that happened, could you share with us who was Ron Stotts before all of that transformation took place and entering into the military and so on? Who was Ron Stotts?
Wow. You know, I was a kid who just loved the outdoors, and I spent every moment I could out in the woods, on the water, playing, doing whatever I could. I was, I look at my education through high school, and I spent 13 years looking outside of the window.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. It's a long time.
Really started when I got out of the Marine Corps, and I got focused and had a clear sense of direction, and it was good. But yeah, I was I went to a year college before the Marine Corps, and I was a U.S. rowing championship. So I was I was just in this all-American boy mode, thinking, oh, this is good. This is fun.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. But what prompted you to get into the Marine Corps? What was the catalyst that took you to the steps of recruitment?
Well, this is a bit of a secret, but I'm feeling like I'm okay with it. So
okay, that's all right.
As a rowing champion and a freshman in college, my whole crew and I had opportunities for scholarships to high-level colleges, and everybody was really excited about it. Except for I had a dark little secret, and that is I didn't have the GPA. I was not a good student.
Okay.
And, it was the shame of that. Really, I didn't want the other guys to find out. I didn't want to have them seeing that, oh, he's not really part of this. And the shame of that had me dropping out of school, and I went to see what was the best way to go. It was during Vietnam, so you had to go in the military if you were out of school. And,
right.
Marine Corps felt like, with all my outdoor training, that felt like the logical way to go. Little did I know. Yeah, so that's how I got there.
Okay, great. And you would have had a really tough time trying to deal with the situation of the imbalance of trying to stay safe and at the same time having to take out some people during the war. And during that time, you had that sort of revelation moment, is it not?
You know, I was a tracker. I was really my whole life because I had grown up outdoors. I mean, I would leave the house at even age 3, 4, 5, and I'd go across the street into the woods. So that was my element.
Okay.
So I was very good at what I did, and
Right.
so the epiphany really was that what I had become best at was killing other people,
Right.
and that was completely unacceptable to me. And
Hmm.
so I had to really, it caught me in a very strong moment that allowed me to go, I followed this path that had been laid in front of me by my family, by my society, by everyone. And I realized I didn't like the rules. I didn't know I could trust the belief systems. I had to really let go of everything that
Okay.
learned
Right.
and reevaluate and decide who I wanted to be, what was right for me.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And there's also a spiritual aspect to it. Could you explain that for us a little bit? How that spiritual aspect came into that part of your transformation?
Yeah, certainly did come in with a full surprise. Yeah, I'll be quite honest with you. I was in the middle of committing suicide and really with
Wow.
no hesitation, thrusting a hunting knife into my heart. And
Wow.
just literally as it began to penetrate,
Mm-hmm.
I was dissolved into a white ball of light.
Hmm.
I'm 19 years old. I don't know what.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, I was in my early 20s by that time, and in that, I just had this sense of peace, this sense of knowing, this sense of that I could trust, and that the
Okay.
world, the universe was perfect, even though I didn't understand it. That there was something deeper to it all, a consciousness within and of it all, and so I was kind of thrown out of that timeless moment
Mm-hmm.
back into the deep forest where I was at the time, and the knife was 20 yards away.
Wow.
I was just, it's like I didn't know what happened during that. I don't know how long that was, and it was from that moment forward, really from a deep sense of inner knowing, inner trusting that there was a consciousness, that I was a part of that consciousness, that classic I am the wave, but I'm also the ocean awareness that came to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't know what else to do. I was just sitting in a lot of shit and didn't know how to get out. Excuse my
Wow.
language.
Wow.
But so I went up to an old cabin that my family had, and I'm talking outhouse and pump, and so we're
Okay.
talking really basic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was sitting with my feet in the wood stove, reading the Bible and philosophy and anything I could find just to get a direction of hope.
Mm-hmm.
And in the months that I was there, walking in the cold winter, the silence, I found myself breathing into everything that had happened to me. I found the silence really lent an empowering womb for me to breathe into and begin to heal, begin to
Okay.
understand and heal.
Okay.
And I went on to get a Ph.D. in psychology and
Mm-hmm.
doctor of chiropractic, but all the lessons that I was learning, those were the lessons that I then converted into tools for helping others.
Okay.
I knew they worked.
And great. Yeah. It's been fantastic. I mean, you have helped secure some level of consistency in the lives of many leaders, and you have positively impacted on millions, I'm sure, around the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I find intriguing is that when I look at your stats, I'm seeing meditation, entrepreneurship, leadership, psychology, neuroscience, Tai Chi, Zen gardens, big mind, storytelling, and it goes on. And I'm thinking, wow, what a portfolio. But, you know, if you had to choose one that would somehow better define you in terms of how that fulfillment came and you started thinking about sharing with others, so that you could continue the process of the fulfillment, what would it be?
There's really one secret. And
Huh?
you're asking good questions because usually I want to talk about this.
Wow.
The real secret
Mm-hmm.
to all of my growth, to all of my life, to everything that I offer and share with others,
Uh-huh.
is that it's that journey into silence is where you access the best of who and what you are.
Okay.
You know, the early work that I do with people is really about healing their past and healing emotional issues and just things that weren't dealt with or handled well in their life.
Okay.
Changing that program for looking for love outside of themselves to looking within themselves.
Right.
Because that helps to begin to quiet the mind, integrate and empower the mind to access the fullest that you've got. The 9 months journey that I offer then more often leaders and entrepreneurs and others, but anybody is welcome to do it. But it's really about then amplifying the brain frequency. I kind of think of the brain as a receiver.
Okay.
And the quality of that receiver really allows you to then extend out and access more from what I call big mind.
Right.
And
Right.
so my game is, I kind of joke with people. I say, the only talent I really have is I can quiet my mind. I can
Okay.
stop thought. But it's in that quiet, it's in that stopping of thought that I'm able to access everything and anything that I need. I get guidance from my higher self, from the wisdom that's available to all of us, and it's not like I'm accessing something other than myself. It's all myself. I'm
Okay.
just accessing the best of who and what I am. And I
Okay.
see the higher level leaders, they just love this stuff because
All right.
they can sit there and go, oh, I need a solution to this problem, or I need a diagram for this tool that I need. And when I go to create a garden, all I do is sit there and let it come in. I look at the people, what my intention is, how do I want to transform their life with the garden and the space, and it just comes in. And so there's none of this going down dead ends and trying and working over and over again. It's really the best. I mean, a big garden that I put together that I'm thinking about right now, it's like, it took me an hour and a half of sitting in silence watching it come in. Within 3 months, it was done, and it won international and national awards. So, when a leader has that sort of capability around any sort of information or what to do with their work, what to do with their organization, it allows them to be more agile, much more present, much more capable of doing the job.
Yeah. Okay. Great. That was very inspirational, and thanks for sharing. Uh, um, I'm looking at some information here, and it says that you were paid quite a handsome sum, like $1 million, to create a Japanese garden. I know you intimated that just as you spoke a minute ago. Could you just go back and tell us what was the inspiration behind that, and how did you come into that space where they decided, okay, Dr. Ron, come on board and build this fantastic stuff for us? How was that experience like for you?
Well, I was working with a CEO of a tech firm down in San Francisco, and
Okay. Okay.
he found out about this hobby of mine, and his wife had a birthday coming up, and so he really, really wanted this retreat on their property. They had an acre that they wanted to use, and he said they could spend up to $1 million, and so it was really about creating a place where she could go and meditate.
Okay.
And where she could go and really calm herself, be centered, and of course had hopes that he would discover some of the tools that she was using also.
All right.
So yeah, I kind of remember giving them a estimate of what it would cost, and then I was kind of joking as I was leaving the home. I said, well, we could spend this much, but we could create this, that, and the other thing. And this was during the .com era, and they called me up and go, yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So it was really just, it's just a matter of being present enough to know who you're speaking with, to know what they truly need. What is their heart looking for?
Okay.
And creating a space that literally transformed their life.
Right.
I mean, when she's there, I mean, I've talked to her through the years, and it just is, it's a place that has elevated her soul in so many ways, because she's sitting in this tea house overlooking the big pond and listening to the river come down and all of the sounds and colors and delightful aspects of the garden that
Wow.
intuitively come into place with that big
Yeah.
mind access.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's so easy for her to quiet her mind. It's so easy for her to just fall into a place of gratitude and just appreciation of life.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Really sounds good.
Yeah.
Which brings me to this point. I know that you have impacted many lives, and I'm thinking, how does it feel as an individual to know that you can look into somebody's life, you can see it in their eyes, you can see it in their actions, you can hear it in their voice, and you know that something you have communicated and shared with them is making that positive and valuable impact. How does that feel for you?
It's the greatest privilege in the world.
Yes. Yes.
I'll catch myself thinking, you know, maybe I had a conversation with somebody that I'd been working with or had worked with in the past, and they're sharing how they're, you know, how it's all going. And it's just, you almost have to giggle because it feels so good to watch them, because it not only affects them, but it affects employees or children, children's children.
Yes.
And that's my intention. I mean, my secret little agenda is I want to really raise the consciousness of the world, because God knows if we don't do it, we're in trouble.
Yeah, we are. And that's a good point. That's a good note. Yeah.
So I discovered the best way to do that is create as many high-level leaders as I can, conscious leaders, who really are the ones that can create lasting, significant change, both on an organizational level, which makes them a lot more money and everything, of course.
Yeah.
But also on a societal level, so that we can really shift the planet. And you know, we hear about people leaving work nowadays, and you know, not being satisfied with just making a buck, and that's really what I try and do, is how do we create conscious leaders so we can create conscious organizations that not only care about their people and really help them develop their own skills in a cooperative, collaborative environment, but also care about the planet, and so that they're doing everything and anything they're doing from that conscious place.
Okay, wonderful. Let's go to the publications, Dr. Ron.
All right.
And you would have saw 3 in the introduction there. Do you have any more besides the 3 that we saw?
It's like I've been doing a lot of writing all my life, but those are the 3 main ones. Yeah, a lot of them I've just self-published. I've had large organizations. There was a time when I had a lot of meditation centers throughout Europe, Switzerland, and in the U.S. And so a lot of those publications and a lot of that writing was more in-house than, you know, I just wasn't worried about marketing and selling at the time as a spiritual teacher. So, yeah.
What was your first publication, actually? Which one was the first?
The Shortcut to Enlightenment.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, because everybody's, you know, we're in such a fast-moving society. Everybody's looking for a shortcut. Nobody wants to spend the 35,000 hours meditating that I did. So
wow.
I can understand that. And so, I just said, okay, well, here's a shortcut. And to be honest with you, it's something that is really, you know, again, I don't talk about much, but the same path that I guided myself and others on in the early days to reach higher levels of consciousness and move into a more interconnected way of living. Really what I'm doing with leaders and entrepreneurs today, because your highest level leaders are nothing more than really conscious people. applying that consciousness into the business world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I see it with just about all of my clients. They reach a point where they realize, oh, my development really is key to the development of my organization.
Right.
For me, is then key to creating a more conscious, caring world.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Wow.
It's all connected.
Yeah. Inspiring. I'm gonna read a couple of things for you,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure it would punch a memory place somewhere in your subconscious.
Okay.
The first one is this: with a transformational guide, you can find a place of deeper personal awareness and clarity.
Yeah.
Just sort of emphasize on that for us, please.
You know, we're born so helpless.
Uh-huh.
And so we engage in the world by looking out for, outside of ourselves for every need we have.
Uh-huh.
We can't even manage our own feelings and needs, and
Yeah.
so we need
Yeah.
help for all of that. And
Right.
that's a lovely part of life. But by the time we're in our teens and early 20s, we really need to be looking within for the
Mhm.
answers. That's the biggest problem I see business leaders having today, is
Okay.
they're looking outside of themselves for
Yeah.
what can only be found within.
Okay.
And so that inner journey is really the most delicious and luscious part of life,
All right.
because every part that you rediscover, every part that you accept and heal, becomes an integrated aspect of who and what you truly are. That's
Okay.
how you become whole.
Mm-hmm.
Is by going back and all those disparate parts that we left behind because we didn't know how to emotionally deal with something, or we didn't know how to process something, we didn't have the help, we didn't have the skill. As we go back, as we breathe back into our life, as I guide people on that inner journey, they rediscover those parts that they'd oftentimes forgotten about.
Okay.
And in accepting and loving those and becoming whole, they really have finally discovered how to gain that unconditional love that they've always wanted. And in
Right.
that, they start moving up in consciousness. Consciousness is really refers to my awareness of my feelings, my emotional and physical feelings, what I'm thinking, and the level of consciousness that I'm playing on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that same shift in consciousness, expansion of consciousness, if you will, that allows us to play more consciously in the world, because initially it's about self-consciousness, self-awareness.
Right. Right.
But that sense of self continues to expand as our consciousness expands. So we become more sensitive and aware of others. It allows us to be more compassionate, empathetic. It allows us to be comfortable with our emotions, which really turn out to be it's almost like they're a sixth sense. They're indicators of something that's going on.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if we're comfortable with them, and we just go down into, say I'm feeling a little angry about, or hurt or sad about something,
Right.
I embrace that. I go, oh, great, an indicator. So
Okay.
I'll breathe, I'll look down into that, I'll see what it is, what's the source of that. And because that's always a part of me that's ready to be healed when that comes up. And that's a really
Yes.
good.
Right.
But in that healing process, what we also access is the very part we need so that we can continue to evolve and grow.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's like the lobster. Every year or so, they have to shed their shell and grow a new one so that they can get bigger. Well,
That's right.
We can't stay in limited comfort zones and continue to grow. We have to step out. We have to have a dream. I think the greatest gift that I see people give themselves, even early on in the work that I do with them, is that they fall in love with themselves, which is really
Yes. Yes.
But there's like a veil between, once they do find that self-acceptance and love, they all of a sudden begin to understand what their highest intention and greatest purpose in life is.
Okay, great.
So, they immediately, all of a sudden, everything starts getting into alignment with that. Life gets so easy when you know your highest intention.
Oh, yes.
And the reason is because if something coming into your life doesn't support your highest intention, you ignore it and let it go. If it does support that highest intention, you embrace it and integrate it into your life. And
Yes.
in time, everything starts coming into alignment towards that higher intention. And all of a sudden, you're creating the reality that the amazing life that you'd like to create or be living.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome and inspiring.
Um,
I'm gonna give you one more and then we're gonna go for a short break and come back.
right?
This one is basically what most folks would see when they try to reach out to get you on social media. An
Uh-huh.
inspirational speaker that can help you learn to think like Einstein and create like Michelangelo. Where did that come from?
Where did that come from? It comes from the experience and the fact that we can do that. What
Okay.
it turns out, Einstein really had most of his epiphanies, E equals MC squared, in that when he was in the shower. He'd
Right.
work for days and labor over trying and efforting in math and whatnot. But it was only when he relaxed and was in the shower that it came to him. And it was like, oh.
Ah,
And
yes.
so, a lot of people, I see it in business people, they use the tools they have, the knowledge, the wisdom, and they try harder and harder and grow their business.
Hmm.
But they all reach, whether they're spiritual teachers, business people, politicians, parents, they all reach a certain point where they
Hmm.
can't seem to move beyond that. They feel stuck,
Okay.
they feel limited,
Yes.
they feel like
Yes.
something's holding them back. And of course, that's where you really, need to access more of who you are. You need to, yeah, you need to look at what is holding you back, what's limiting you, where you want to go, and heal whatever's there so that you can move beyond that. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Wonderful. Yes, it does. Yeah. So we have live in the breakout room Dr. Ron Stutz, and he has been sharing some wonderful and some informative and inspirational stuff with us. So we're going to keep him in our company while we go for a short break. We will be right back. Don't you go anywhere, folks. Thank you for supporting Andy's personal development in the breakout room. We'll be back shortly after this commercial break. Okay, we are live and back in the breakout room with Dr. Ron Stotts, our special guest at this time. And we will continue with the inspiration that would lead to transformation. So, Dr. Ron, I'm going to give you a quotation here by an individual who has, in many ways, created an impact in history, some that may be more infamous than famous. But I think that it is something that when we look at life today in terms of the pandemic and the impact that it has made
Uh-huh.
on leaders in particular,
Yes.
uh, the individual is Lenin, and the quotation is simply this, controversial figure, I know. It says, there are decades when nothing happens,
Yes.
and then there are weeks when decades happen. That seems to be the
Wow.
thing
Wow.
taking place now with the
Yeah.
pandemic. And the question I
Yes.
need to ask, sir,
Right.
is what would be the one big things that the leaders ignore that could have a huge impact on their success today?
Great question. And it is, I've watched it. I watched it in the 70s and the 80s. And,
Yeah.
I watched the transitions of interest in consciousness and introspective development. And we are at a point where change is happening, change is available, and it's important, critically important that we go through those transformations. So
Hmm.
what I see leaders missing is, well, one, they're so caught up on money or power that they
Hmm.
get distracted. And what they don't realize is, there might be a part of them that really wants to keep themselves or their family safe, but they are doing that in a disconnected way.
Okay.
For example, I see people, I work with multi-millionaire, billionaires. It's not uncommon. But I watch them thinking, oh, I'll make all this money and then I'll give it back and contribute to society. What they don't realize is they're screwing society up as they're making
Wow.
that money. What they
Yes.
don't realize is they could be creating an organization that is ongoingly supporting not only pay people more, and create a more healthy environment for us to live in as you're developing that. But they're so fear oriented, ego oriented, that it's almost like they want to capture the gold ring before that they are really contributing to the world in the ways that they're capable of. So they need to look at what their own limitations are creating in their organizations. They need to really identify that their limitations are the limitations of the organization. Their issues are the issues of the organization.
Right.
And the truth is, within a short time, they can deal with those and they can heal them. Literally a couple months, a lot
Hmm.
of that can be dealt with. And so, yeah, they've got to recognize that if they're afraid, that the organization is afraid. It's
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember back in the 80s, I was helping AT&T go through divestiture,
Hmm.
and it was from a monopoly to a for-profit, different
Okay.
divisions. And my last report, it sounded like I was talking about the Johnson family or somebody. It was like, here's dad, and here's mom, and here's the kids.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the head folks started realizing, oh, our issues really get translated down into all levels of management, all levels of technicians. And that's what really allowed them to make the shift that they made, was to really recognize that if they're not going to be more open, if they're not going to step outside of the safety zone and try new things and explore and really be passionate about something, have a mission, put a
Hmm.
stake in the ground and saying this is who we are and what's important
Right.
to us, that it's not going to translate into their community, their organization, into the families and the society that they're a part of. So they have to take a real sense of responsibility, I guess, for their own life, and recognize that in healing that, in empowering that, and becoming more conscious, that they can dramatically affect and create a much more conscious world, which is really a safer world for them and a safer world for their family.
Yes.
Them having a big pile of money and a bunch of people not having money is not a safe world. You know?
All right.
And
Yes.
and it's never about the money. All of them,
Okay.
all of them come to that.
Okay.
It's like, well, that wasn't it.
Right. Right. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing. Um, what is your greatest concern for the world right now? We see so many things happening in the world, on different scales, on different levels, and most of them are not comfortable in terms of the development of civilization, if I can be so broad in my perspective. But what would be your greatest concern for the world right now?
Well, that we're going to destroy it.
There you go. Point of concern. Point of concern.
In some ways, I think we're all in second grade and always have been in second grade, and we just, next lifetime we'll go into third grade if we've done our work.
Okay.
But in truth, when I watch the Black Lives Matter, when I watch the Me Too movement, when I watch the concerns about the environment, when I watch all of the disparate groups coming together and saying, hey, I'm a part of the society and I want to participate fully. And
right.
And it's, I'm an old white guy, but I don't know where in the world they got the idea that they had any sort of privilege or ability to lead us. It's the intertwining of our cultures. It's the intertwining of our natures. There was an old Helen Reddy song, "Put a Woman in Charge." I think that's who wrote it. I mean,
Okay.
It's like, yeah, or at least have them in co-creating our world from that more feminine, conscious place.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that's my concern is we're literally going to destroy the world, and we've got to get out of this fear of scarcity-based, power-monger, greed attitude that's really a self-destructive. I mean, personally, I watch people, they get into their 50s, 60s, 70s and having heart attacks and dying from this, not realizing that that's very connected to their lifestyle,
right,
to their attitudes, to what they've done. And we can't. A friend of mine, Dr. Rudy Tanzi, shared with me years ago that over 50% of the people by 2030, over 50% who reach 65 are going to have dementia or Alzheimer's. In other words, they won't even know who they are.
They
won't remember who their family is. I mean, I lost my mom to that years and years ago, and it's like, that's how disconnected we're becoming. That's not genetically being caused. That's lifestyle being caused. And if we don't change that, we just become more disconnected within ourselves, which gets reflected in our disconnection with others, in our relationships, in our society. It's just what's going on in here gets reflected in all that I create. My consciousness affects and is a part of the consciousness of the world, the universe.
Yeah. Excellent. Wow. Having placed that in some level of perspective, what would be your ultimate advice to the leaders everywhere? And I say that because I think leaders everywhere in the world, political, religious, social, sport-wise, music-wise, they have the opportunity to have a greater access to creating impacts on people's lives.
I agree.
But how then can they help us to come to that level of consciousness that you're speaking about, that could save us from going down the path that we apparently seem to be going now? How they can reach to that point?
Now, that's a good question. To come up with an answer, you can become my marketing guy.
Oh, I hear you. Wow.
The truth is that I know for a fact is if I can get them to breathe, if I can get them to breathe and feel and look deeper,
yes,
they begin to be more self-introspective. as that compassion and kindness develops within themselves, it becomes mirrored in relationship to others. And I
Okay.
know that doesn't sound like a real direct sort of, well, take this pill and then we'll be solve that
Everything's gonna
problem.
be all right, right?
But it really, we seem to be so frightened to look within. It
Mm.
seems to be the scariest thing in the world, to be vulnerable. And yet that is where our power, our strength is. When I use the word power, what I'm really saying is, that's how open our heart is.
Okay.
I see leaders feeling like the armor that they have over their heart is protecting them, and they don't realize that it's killing them, quite literally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's time to shed that armor of our heart and begin to connect from a more compassionate, collaborative, cooperative, supportive way, so that we can bring out the best of everybody, so that
Right.
leader doesn't feel like it's just up to them,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not. It's our life. you know,
Yes.
it's a war affects us all. I mean, a war, trust me, is the worst thing. It's like anybody who thinks war is an option, unless you're being
Mm.
attacked, is just not on board
All
and
right.
paying attention.
All right.
So yeah,
Inspirational. Thanks for sharing, Dr. Ron.
yeah.
I'm looking at the many challenges that people have in the world today, and I'm thinking that you have, you have put together this fantastic information, this fantastic experience, where you basically have combined the knowledge with the spiritual aspect,
Right.
and you put that together and you have shared your experience. Going forward, what do you see your impact as in terms of how you would create the opportunities for people to be more informed, more encouraged,
Mhm.
as you say, breathe more, and to become more aware of themselves? What is the future like for Ron Stutz at this time?
Well, I'm really in the midst of also, reaching out more, being on TV more, being
Right,
in
right.
publications more.
Okay.
The truth is, I had my moments of celebrity, up in my 30s, 40s, that kind of thing. But for a while, I sort of hung back, and I had my word of mouth, and I was busy and enjoying my life. But
Okay.
I've got great grandkids, and I, I can't. It's out of integrity for me to leave a world in worse shape than I found it for my grandkids. And
Right.
so I want to make the world better for all kids. I watch my grandkids now making the world a better place from their positions.
Okay.
But yeah, we've just got to. I might have lost touch with your question, but we've got to come to a place of really enhancing our lives. That's my initial course is called Creating Your Inspired Life.
Mm-hmm.
And what people don't realize is how easily that's done. If you're just,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of healing this limitation. Yet they still,
Right. Right.
try and live
Yeah.
through life
Yeah. Yeah.
acting like everything's normal. It's like,
Mm.
no, that's not normal.
Okay.
Having limitations and not loving yourself unconditionally is not normal. And it's time for us to really embrace. It does sound spiritual, I understand, but
Yes.
that's a part of who we are.
Right.
And if we don't really merge, you can't have your business life and your work, your family life and your spiritual life and your workout at the gym. Those, you're
Mm.
all one person, and we
Right.
have to
Right.
come into life and participate in life in that integrated way, so that we're responding, thinking, and creating in an integrated, supportive way for everybody.
Excellent. Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Dr. Ron.
Okay.
We have come basically to the end of our conversation, our interview,
Mhm.
but you have some stuff that I want you to share with our listeners, our audience.
Uh-huh.
And right now, what I'd like to do before I ask you to do that is to inform them of our next guest that will be coming on in the breakout room live on Andy's personal development. And that individual is Anne Scutlin. Anne has worked in the industries of motivation and well being for over a decade. She is a nature and animal lover, a mountain hiker, humanitarian world traveler, and a doting dog mama, an influencer, an award winning writer and actress. A number one Amazon bestseller is Live for Joy. She will be joining us live in the breakout room on Tuesday, 8 February 2022 at 3 p.m. Eastern Time or 4 p.m. AST, that's local time. So look forward for that. Anne Scutlin live in the breakout room on Tuesday, February 8, 2022 at 3 p.m. Eastern or 4 p.m. AST. But the man of the moment is Dr. Ron Stotts. So if anyone needs to get in contact with you, sir, they need to have your expertise, your information shared, or get your publications. What are the most effective ways they can get in contact with you?
I think going to the website,
Mhm.
ronstotts.com, STOTTS.com.
Mhm.
You know, just on the homepage, there's 9 insightful questions. And even
Okay.
just downloading that, it's no cost or anything. That'll
Okay.
give them a chance to work through what's their biggest challenge, what's their biggest dream come true, and
Right.
also take a
Right.
look at all that gap in between and what they can
Mhm.
do to begin to resolve that. And that's really a first step to becoming whole. But they can also find out about my Creating Your Inspired Life program and my other more extensive advanced programs, and find out about the books and everything else. I just had it redone. I'm so
Okay.
thrilled with what my folks
Okay.
are doing with it. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Wonderful. Thank you. You
Yeah.
have heard the man of the moment, Dr. Ron Stutz, as he shared his life, his philosophy, his beliefs, and his convictions with us right here in the breakout room live on Andy's personal development. It was awesome, it was inspiring, and I felt like I was in school. But I know that he spoke from the heart, and we will continue to add value to many more lives. So continue to be with us, continue to support us. Remember, we're on Apple, Spotify, iTunes, you name it. Look for Andy's personal development, subscribe and follow. We thank you so much for being with us listening this episode, and we pray that you would continue to have peace and live in safety and Godspeed. Remember to focus on your dreams. There is no impossible situation in life. It's our perspective. There's always a way out, and you need to find it and navigate yourself to health, to freedom, and to happiness. This is Andy of Andy's Personal Development saying bye now. Until next time. Stay safe, people. God bless.